Welcome to the Home Fellowship podcast. We are a place where the students of Belfast can gather together and encounter Jesus, and then go live a life like him. We hope you enjoy today's podcast. Feel free to check us out on Facebook and Instagram for our upcoming events. Welcome to another podcast. Dave, thank you very much for being with us today, mate.
No problem.
Dave is the lead pastor and heads up the team here at Central Church. Dave, we always ask a funny question to start with. When you were a student, did you have a signature dish that you would whip up or you would cook?
I was a terrible cook at uni, but several of my friends and I enjoyed whipping up a chicken pita pocket.
Nice.
It felt sophisticated at the time. It really wasn't. It was just like fried chicken in a pita pocket, which was toasted with the odd bit of lettuce, just to spice it up a wee bit. So we cooked that quite a bit. Loved it.
Yeah, that sounds good. Where did you study, or what did you study growing up when you left school?
Yeah, well, I studied at Queen's, so I did a law degree. And mostly hated it, but I was one of those people who came out of school, results like my levels were sort of predicted to be decent. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I probably should have done history or music because I was actually interested in those. I ended up doing law because of school, careers, people, and all of that. And so I didn't much enjoy it. I really couldn't stand my first year. And then everybody says, oh, well, just hold on, you're just getting used to uni. So then I got into my second year, and then in my second year I was playing music at the time with a band, and we started doing okay. So I took about 18 months out of uni to go and play full-time, tour a bit, live out the back of a splitter van, which definitely sounds better than the reality is. It's fairly miserable. So did that for about 18 months, and then got a phone call from uni to say, well, look, you either come back and you finish your degree or you don't come back. And so we were going through just the moment we were in with the band wasn't a great kind of time, and so it suited me to go back. So I went back, finished my degree. So I finished in when did I finish? Finished in 2007.
Okay, cool.
A long time ago.
Nice one. And then did you work in law for a wee while? Did you work in practice or anything?
No, so at the time I did, there'll be lots of students watching this who are in their third year and are beginning to look at like grad management schemes and all of that sort of stuff. So that's the way I thought I was going to go. So I left and I applied for several of like the big ones, Central Services, Citibank, places like that. And like they take about a year to do the application periods and interviews and all that. So I thought I was going that way. In the meantime, I took a job, of all things, selling and importing tiles and bathrooms from Spain and Italy.
Nice one.
It was the most miserable thing I've ever done in my life. Actually, my big sister came to see me one day when I was working, and I think she thought I was like clinically depressed and just not in a good way. So that wasn't for me. I couldn't stand it. I really didn't enjoy it, but it kind of paid the bills and tied me over. When I finished uni, I had a job in Starbucks, so I loved that job.
Nice one.
And then I went from there working, doing tiles and bathrooms while I was applying, and then at a point along that road, the Alpha job thing happened, so that kind of changed things.
Nice one. Yeah, that's cool. Do you think that it's a funny one actually you're saying about that time working in a tile shop? Do you think like you hear so many stories of God taking people out before something? Was there any moments like that there? Working in a tile shop, did God ever use you, or was anything there? Sorry, random question for you. But.
No, good question. I think I spend a lot of time with young adults, students. And one of the big questions and kind of longings, I guess, I hear a lot from people is purpose. Is like, what am I here for? Yeah. Unless you're somebody that feels that there's something vocational in your life and it's maybe been there since you were a kid or whatever, you end up out the other side or coming to the end of a uni journey with all this freedom, and you've kind of had your steps directed up until now, and all the freedom is in front of you, and it's hard. And so I always felt that purpose and kind of meaning and direction was best found moving. And so for me, like, I needed a job, I needed to be earning money, but I guess there was an awful lot of that time sat in that place just asking myself, like, is this really it? Is this really what God has me for? No disrespect to people for whom working in a tile shop is what they are passionate about. I was not. I couldn't stand it. And so, I felt like it was quite a formative time because I think it taught me a whole bunch of stuff about what I didn't want to be doing with my life and helped me I guess, zero in on the things that I thought I was for. And so, I mean, I didn't enjoy it, but I feel like it was a meaningful period in kind of my journey, just as a follower of Jesus, as a leader, all of that. I think it was an important thing.
That's cool. Nice one. And then talk to us a wee bit about your Alpha role. What was your role with that?
Yeah, so I was the head of Alpha Northern Ireland. There wasn't somebody doing that job before me. It was kind of a first time role in Northern Ireland. So but total bizarre experience, the whole thing. I really, my dad's a Presbyterian minister, my 3 uncles are Presbyterian ministers, my granda was a Presbyterian minister, my great granda preached in the shipyards in Belfast and all that. So I really pushed back hard at that. And I really thought like I was going to do the management thing. I really believed like this is what I'm going to be doing in my life. And then just a bizarre set of circumstances, felt like God was talking to me, felt he was really on my case about this Alpha job, and I didn't really want the job. Anyway, I stuck an application form in. I didn't really even complete the form. I felt like God gave me a picture or a vision for what that role and what the Alpha course could do in Northern Ireland, and I basically filled in the like name, contact details, all that sort of stuff, and then just wrote the vision and sent it in, went for interview, got offered the job, really wrestled almost harder afterwards with like, what is a calling? What does a calling look like? Is this it? You know, really wrestled hard. So eventually felt like, yeah, this is it. I may not necessarily really like it, but this is what I feel like God is calling me to. So took that job, worked for Alpha for, I was in the roles in different capacities, but I was there for about 8 years in total. First 5 years were full-time, and then gradually I started to put some of that time into working for my church. So I was the worship pastor at the church, so it kind of eventually ended up about 50-50 in terms of time. Cool. And that was kind of the progression then into working for church, and that sort of started the road to how we got to here now. So
nice one.
Yeah.
And then just chatting about here now, chatting about Central, how did that come about? When did you know that you were maybe meant to plant a church, or how'd that come about?
Yeah, I mean, again, it wasn't something that kind of happened just like click your fingers and happened overnight. It didn't really happen like that. It happened over time. So when I started working for Car Money, one of the specific roles I had was to run their Alpha courses in January. So for 5 years we ran an Alpha course in Belfast City Centre. Our January Alpha courses weren't really working for young adults, and our evening church services were filling up with young adults, but they weren't really engaging with things like Alpha. And we just started to ask why, and we went through a process of listening and kind of dreaming for how that could look. And we figured out that the city centre was one of the big kind of links. So we started running it in Belfast City Centre over 5 years. About 350 people did those courses. Bunch of people came to faith. People got renewed in their faith. All sorts of good stuff. The stuff you want to see when you do missional type activities. And I just, over that 5 years, it just started to be this like itch. And it was kind of like, is this it? Like, are we just meant to go and lead people to faith in Jesus, and then, you know, that's it? That's us out. And it kind of worked on me and worked on me and worked on me. And it was almost as if the more fruit there was in the courses, the more it kind of really, it jarred with me. And at that time, you know, we were finishing up courses in places like the Black Box or Established or wherever. And I was walking back to my car, like walking past closed churches, walking past empty buildings and thinking like, I've just been in a course with, you know, like 100 people. Lots of them are young, lots of them coming from no faith backgrounds, lots of them expressing hunger in Jesus, lots of them meeting Jesus, and the buildings are closed. Like, what is happening here? Yeah. And so that just kept spinning with me, and it was working on me over all of those years, and it just grew and grew and grew. And eventually, kind of the last year we ran Alpha, I started to really think, pray, ask questions, sit down with other leaders. You know, what does it look like when God's calling you when you think God's calling you to plant a church? And so I began to wrestle out those kind of questions. You know, what would I need to do next? What doors would need to open? Began to express that to other leaders and our staff team at Car Money. My wife and I began to express that to other friends. All of a sudden, we found some people kind of meeting us for coffee and going, hey, I don't know what you're doing, but I want to come with you. That's cool. So teams sort of started to form, and so then we took about a year. So that course finished somewhere around March time. By that stage, I was very much like, this is what I think God's calling me to do. And so then between March, we started to pray, we started to gather the other people that were interested. We started to identify a few others that we thought maybe we should ask them. So then we met several times a month around a table to eat and pray and thrash out what vision and purpose and values and things like that. Prayer walk the city. We sort of did that, and eventually then we planted in October 2016. That's cool. So that was kind of the journey that went on. So yeah, I feel like calling, purpose, all of that stuff, it didn't happen for me overnight. It kind of unfolded over time, and it just didn't go away. I feel like that was one of the big features.
That's cool.
I feel like that is a big feature of calling. It just won't go away. Even if you try to bury it down, it kind of keeps at you and keeps at you and keeps at you. And I feel like that was kind of what it was like for me.
What would you say to students maybe in that circle? Not like they feel called to maybe plant a church, but they maybe feel called to step out, or they feel called to step out of their degree in something. Any advice you would give them that this wee nagging? Like, what would you advise? Give up?
Yeah, well, again, I always feel like, you know, those sorts of God moments are best experienced moving. I just sort of think, you know, the story of the Bible. It's funny, I was thinking about the Apostle Paul the other day. You know, probably the most, you know, prolific missionary, kind of the catalyst for the early church in lots of ways, and yet he was running very quickly and very strongly in a completely opposite direction. God just turned around all that momentum. You know, he's a fanatic in one way. God kind of turned him around and just pointed all that fanaticism in another way. And I sort of think movement is a big thing. And so I think if students feel like, you know, God is speaking to them, calling them, asking them to step out in some things, I think your best bet is to start to do some of those things. I sort of think you find things out on the move, not necessarily sat statically in your house talking about it.
That's good. Yeah.
I think words, there's just too many words, and I think you know, a lot of the time we would benefit so very much from more action. And so for me, yeah, I think movement is a big thing. I think listening to God, I think spending time actually listening, and paying attention to the things that don't let up. I do think if God is calling you into stuff, it's gonna stick with you. It's gonna like, it just won't go away. And there are, I mean, the Alpha Course has a series of CSs. I'm going to get them wrong now, but anyway, has a series. If God is guiding you or God is leading you, there's a series of things that you normally experience or could expect to. One is scripture, so, you know, commanding scripture. So what does God's word have to say about this? You know, I understand that lots of times, you know, God's word doesn't have anything specific to say about whether you should be like sharing the gospel with the person you sit next to, that exact person in class. Like, I understand that, but his word's pretty clear about, you know, sharing the gospel, for example. So what does God's word say? And then you have, you know, the Spirit. What is the Spirit saying to you? What doors are open? What is leading? What is kind of the direction of your life? I think, you know, if you take a backward step and begin to look at your life, you begin to see the Spirit's leading to people, to things in your own heart that are changing, behavior, stuff that God's on your case about. So what's the Spirit saying? Then I think you have circumstantial signs, which are like, oh, well, that's a bit strange. You know, just things in your day that are like, that's the third time this week somebody said that to me. You know, those sorts of things. Cool. And then finally, counsel of the saints. So people you know, trust, who love Jesus, what do they say? You know, if you shared with them what you think God is on your case for, what do they say about that? So those are kind of four things that I would say a lot to people if they're saying, I think God's guiding me to do something. I would be saying, okay, well, here's four things. How do they line up? And there's a very good chance if all four of them line up, God is leading you into something. Cool. Even if a number of them line up, there's a very good chance God is leading you into something. I have found the greater challenge with a lot of people is they've lined up all four and still they're like, I don't know if I want to do that. And you're like, well, that's kind of your deal. Yeah. That's not a God thing. God is very clearly leading you. You've told me you think he's leading you, but now you're telling me you're going to go the other way. So your own will and what you want to do plays a big part in that too. Cool.
Can you see, another kind of vague question, I hope I get this right when I'm asking it, but can you see like God moving when you were studying law? Like was there times in your, as I say, with your job and with law that kind of prepared you to do what you're doing now? Is there any like things you can look back on and
not, in one way, not really. In another way, I mean, now a lot of my time is spent kind of thrashing through material and preaching content and direction and trying to discern what I think the Lord is saying, and all of that stuff. And I guess the Lord prepared me to handle kind of dense material. If you've ever, I mean, I know there'll be people sitting there that have done land law. If you've done land law, like theology is a walk in the park. Like that for me, and also building friendships, relationships, being a Christian in the context of, in my case, a lot of friends who weren't believers. I felt that was really valuable for me at the time in terms of witness and living something meaningful around those other people. So those were probably the big things for me. But in terms of my degree, not particularly. But that was just my experience of my own degree. And I know everyone's different.
Cool.
So.
What was your experience like sharing God at university? Were people open to it? Or Charlotte Curran, actually, when we sat down with her, she made a good point that she actually found that people in her uni were actually more open to faith. Like, you kind of think that you're on the back foot, but people were very open to the idea of faith. Did you find that through university, or what was it like studying law and being a Christian?
Yeah, I found people generally were open. I mean, it was more like snidey comments. Generally at the start, it was like snidey comments when you were out or whatever. And it was that sort of stuff, oh, well, of course you don't do that. No, well, you wouldn't be interested in that. And sometimes there were like occasions where like they were up to stuff and you were kind of left out the loop and you could feel a little bit wick about that.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, when it came to sharing about faith, people just had more questions than anything else.
That's cool.
And like, obviously then, I studied between 03 and 07. So like, that's a long time ago. The world is a very different place now in terms of influences and all of that stuff. So more so then it was more about just questions they had. And I found that they were very, very willing to ask them. The more kind of my relationship with them went on, the more willing they were to ask it. I found things like, initiations and sports teams. I played football at uni. I just didn't do it. I just was like, nah, that's not for me. And that was like hard in some ways. You got stick from some people for that. In other ways, I think there were some people who respected that, and I found that they were the people who kind of sidled up to you, 6 months later when you were out at a pub and said, hey man, I'm really struggling with this at the minute. Cool. What do you think about that? And so I found it was more I just generally find now, and I found it myself when I was at uni, it's your life that speaks.
Yeah.
It's not even your profession of faith, it's your life. It's your, like, what does your life say to these people? And I found that it was that over the course of 3 or 4 years at uni, that people came to think of you as a certain sort of person, and a person with, different interests and passions, and their life is going in a different direction, and therefore they came to you at different times. So it was consistency thing I found. And obviously you're a student, so you don't get it all right. There's things you do you're not proud of, and they were there, inevitably whenever I drank too much or did whatever too, that was never a good thing, but it was a reality. You're a student, you're figuring this thing out. And so definitely, I found it was being a consistent person, trying to follow Jesus in your everyday. That was a big thing.
It's cool. Really quickly, actually, just on that, your series at the minute is Until He Comes. What's that about with your church? Real quick.
We're just thinking about the now and not yet nature of life, really, and the Bible talks a lot about in these last days, and these last days are these days, the time between when Jesus ascended up to heaven and when he's coming back again. And what does it mean to live in those times? We live with a future hope, but that future hope should indwell in us now as well. So I think it's John Stott says, the aim of the Christian is not to get souls into heaven, it's to get heaven into souls. And so I think that's what we're trying to think about. How might we be a community of believers who, are trying to get heaven into us in such a way that we impact the world in which we live. So that's what we're trying to kind of dig into over the next year or so, in and out of different kind of sections. We've been reading 2 Peter together and kind of preaching into that over the last little while, but we'll be digging into that throughout the year in different ways.
Cool, mate. And what are you coming to share about tomorrow night then, at Home Fellowship?
So I'm coming to share about discipleship, what it means to be an apprentice of Jesus. We're talking about how we serve the city, and it is my belief that serving the city is not so much about things that you do, it's about who you are. And people jump very quickly when we think about mission or we think about service. People just jump so very quickly to things you do, teams you're a part of, projects, all of that sort of stuff. Actually, foundationally, it starts with who you are. And if we are ever going to do the sorts of things Jesus did, then we need to first begin to look like him.
Cool.
And so that's kind of where we're going on tomorrow night.
Nice one. Well, here for the first time ever, we have stuck a wee Instagram poll up, and we've done some questions. So some of these are crazy deep, bro. So
well, we'll go there. You're gonna get crazy shallow answers.
But so a couple from Instagram and a couple from our team as well. First one: if you weren't a pastor, what would you be?
Probably in management of some description.
Okay.
I feel like we spent a little bit of time last year doing kind of fivefold gifts.
Mm-hmm.
So apostle, prophet, teacher, shepherd, evangelist, as they appear in God's word.
Mm-hmm.
And so I came out very strongly in the apostolic kind of gifting. So
Okay.
I am strongest in kind of pioneering environments and that
Mm-hmm.
sort of stuff. So I feel like I would probably work quite well in a fast-moving sort of management environment. So I feel like, that's probably what I feel like I'd be doing. Reality, probably still be in a tile shop. Who knows?
You've kind of answered this one before anyway, bro, but how did you know that God was leading you into ministry? Was there a key point, or was it just a gradual thing, as you say? It was just that wee nagging at you? Yeah,
I mean, I feel like it was probably both of those things. I mean, there's a long-range one in that, it's I protested so strongly about ministry stuff throughout all of my life that I probably knew ministry stuff was on my life because
okay.
It's almost like, you protest too much thing. I sort of felt like that in hindsight, looking back, that was probably there. And then in this kind of short range stuff, it was a nagging thing over time. I mean, certain things like preaching, where I was really reluctant about that, particularly because I'd watched my dad preaching my whole life, and I actually was more comfortable leading worship than I was preaching. But I felt like that just chipped away and gradually kind of passion started to unearth. And then with passion comes like application and discipline, and all of those things went from it. But for me, it was a journey over a while. Various things prophetic words, people confirming those prophetic words, all of that, and my own personal sense as well of I think God is opening doors and calling me to do different things. So over time, that just chipped and chipped and chipped. The big one for me was when I was working for Alpha. Initially, I was so excited about seeing the whole church. And that was one of the great privileges of that job, was, being with a Catholic parish on a Monday night, an Elim Pentecostal church on a Tuesday night, non-denominational, Presbyterian. Got to see what all the colours of the church in Northern Ireland looked like. And that was wicked. It was a real privilege. But over time, I just found the draw narrowed and narrowed and narrowed, and I became less excited about kind of playing this sort of outside role to all the church, to wanting to play a really deep role with one church. And that kind of happened over time. I became more excited about what was happening in one person's life than getting feedback from a course and hearing, 30 people have come to Jesus, and sort of feeling like, well, that is amazing, but I haven't got to see that or be part of that. And I was more excited about that one person in our own Alpha course that I was kind of sharing with every week and watching them grow and watching things happen in their life. So I found that, it kind of narrowed and then got to where we are now.
Nice one. Another question. We're just banging through these here, mate.
Yeah, do it.
What are some of the challenges leading the church now as opposed to 15 years ago? You obviously said you didn't need a church 15 years ago.
I didn't lead church 15 years ago, so I mean, you need somebody else with an awful lot more experience than me to tell you what it was like to lead 15 years ago. Now, I mean, there are huge challenges. I have probably never seen it that way. I would probably feel like there are just challenges to leading a church. In terms of leading in the now, I mean, culture is changing very, very quickly, and lots of the things that used to be questions are no longer questions, and it feels like, the nature of the world, social media, all of that are so all-encompassing now that other questions are now big ones. So, I mean, there's specific challenges with things like mental health, kind of sexuality, gender, those are specific questions that are big questions in this moment. But for me, a lot of the time, as I say, purpose is a big, big deal. I spend a lot of time unpacking that. And to be honest, though, the context is different from what it was. But really the challenge is for any pastor is trying, to lead, equip, challenge,
Mm.
excite, people into really following Jesus with all of their lives. And I guess that, that has always been the challenge for a pastor. It's not, for me, it's not to fill this building, as nice as that might be. It's not to fill this building up with people. It's to fill the city up with life. Like that,
Cool.
for me, that is the challenge.
Yeah.
I want to see Belfast as a fundamentally different place. Like things like homelessness, which feel like they're on the rise. I think the church should be taking that on their shoulders to say, actually, we are going to be responsible for that to fall. We're going to be responsible for seeing things like the increase in drug addiction and all of that. We're going to be responsible for seeing that decline. We're going to be responsible for seeing things like peace and reconciliation increase in our city. Whatever it is, I feel like that has always been the challenge, and that is still the challenge now. And for me, actually, I probably find that working in a largely post-Christian kind of culture, which most people agree we are or we're moving towards, I actually find that way easier than, kind of cultural Christianity. I find that so very difficult. And I think we all know how to speak and be in that environment. And I don't think that's a good thing. I actually think it's a good thing because we're stretched in the post-Christian environment where we're constantly kind of having our head wrecked by another mainline news story or that person that sits next to you in class or in work, and it's forcing you to deal with and engage with, well, what do I really think about that, and why do I think like that, and so for me, I actually probably am glad that I'm working in a post-Christian culture rather than just a Christendom kind of paradigm for church, because that's really difficult, where people know all the right answers, they've heard all the stuff before, but yet they don't kind of get it. I prefer to work in the culture that we are in right now.
Cool. You mentioned really quickly there social media. We have a question here. Do you think social media has a positive or negative impact on our self-esteem? Sorry, kind of bouncing about a bit. But
I would say largely negative.
Okay.
I have social media. I'm a really terrible follow. Don't bother following me because I rarely post anything. And I more or less just use it to kind of try and get a feel for, especially for my own church and for the world in which we're in, what are people wrestling with, talking about, what's going on there. I think it was D.L. Moody, said at one stage, that to preach in culture means to hold the Bible in one hand and a newspaper in the other. And I feel like for me, that's what social media is. I think for a lot of people, it's just negative. Just every aspect of it, from wasting your time to negative perceptions about yourself to false perceptions about what everybody else is living like. For me, the negatives, and I think obviously in our world, are beginning to hugely outweigh the positives. And I think people are seeing that. When you got Facebook VPs and people that set up those organizations basically come out and say that they're not going to let their kids have what they have created. I think you're beginning to see the very real and dark side of social media. I don't think it's going to go away. I think it's just there. It's just a reality for everyone. But I do think we need to take a very good look at, what we're looking at, how we take that information in, how it is affecting things like our mental health, our self-perceptions, our perceptions of the world, and I do think that has a really serious impact on our relationship with Jesus, because Jesus and his way really has a huge bearing on how we should see ourselves, the world, our future, everything. But if we're really honest, social media probably has a bigger bearing on that for most people than what Jesus has to say about it. So I don't think it's necessarily a good picture a lot of the time. But I'm not one of these people that's like out beating the drum for do away with social media. That's not possible. I just think it's about recalibrating people's kind of metrics for what has value and what doesn't have value. So we were just talking last week from 2 Peter 3 and there's this line in it, and it talks about the nature. A scoffer, it says in 2 Peter 3 that scoffers are going to come in the last day, and scoffers we think about as people that are just kind of in the back row laughing, not kind of mucking about. But actually, like, one of the better translations of that word is that people who take lightly that which should be taken seriously. And I think in life, especially when it comes to things like social media, we take very seriously stuff which is not meant to be taken seriously. Stuff which should be light, stuff which we should be like casting off, not really letting it take a big hold in our lives and in our heart and all of that, and trying to take hold of the stuff that really does. But actually, a lot of the time, we find ourselves holding on to light stuff as if it's heavy, and heavy stuff as if it's light. And I think, following Jesus is about recalibrating those things, holding on really tightly to the things that are fundamentally important, who Jesus says you are, where he says the world is going, what your worth is, what your meaning is, what your purpose is, all of those sorts of things. We should be holding those really, really tightly and really, really loosely. What somebody else is wearing or what their life looks like. Yeah. That is so unimportant whenever you look at the grand scheme of what Jesus has done and is trying to do in your life. That's my 2 cents.
Incredible. Yeah, nice one. We're coming to land here, coming towards the end, but what challenges would you face as a pastor? That's a kind of funny one.
All of them.
Yeah.
I think one is it can be quite lonely. At the end of the day, I realised the other day that from the Alpha job to working at Carmoney to doing what I'm doing now, I mean, basically most of my ministry journey has been largely in kind of pioneering roles, which has meant I've pretty much been on my own. And so it can be, I've got quite used to that working environment. Yes, now we have some great people around me that I work with. I love working with them, all of that stuff. But it can be quite a lonely journey. Ministry often can. In lots of ways, your friends very often don't get it. And I've been really fortunate in that my closest friends are, all Christians. Actually, lots of them now come to our church. And that's been great because I feel like there's a shared kind of shouldering of the stuff that you're doing. But actually, a lot of the time for a lot of people, when you're stepping out into things that, Jesus is doing in your life, you will feel quite alone. And so that one has been it. I feel like a lot of the time, working on your own has positives, but equally it has big challenges, motivation, being disciplined. All of those things are, when nobody else is checking the clock, whether you got up today to go to work, like it's on you, right? Yeah. So I feel like those sorts of things, those are a big deal, kind of fostering discipline and all of that in your life. That is a big, big challenge. I guess just like kind of fit it all in. I'm married. We've got a 3-year-old daughter. We're expecting baby number 2 at the minute. Life is full on, and the kind of work of a church leader, like there is no off time. Yeah. Particularly a church leader, that's planted a church. Like, things don't happen if you're not about and all of that stuff. So it's like it doesn't stop. And so I found like I've needed to be really disciplined with things like my phone. So like on a Sunday after church, after having preached, I found, for example, you were really vulnerable to little like things that the enemy was trying to speak into your life. So I just basically avoid my phone on a Sunday, finish with church, spend time with family, hang out, change kind of the rhythm of my life on a Sunday, don't look at my phone, all of that sort of stuff. And so little things like that, I think it really requires discipline from you. So, I mean, there's lots, motivation to keep going, fresh vision, fresh energy to kind of dip into stuff, pastoral issues, which are hard and really weigh heavily on your heart. When somebody comes and they've got stuff going on, like it's not like you just leave and that's gone. That you're gonna carry that around for a while. Yeah. So all of that stuff, I mean, all of the challenges, lots of which people face in non-Christian context jobs, they face the same challenges. So I'm not singling them out as like a pastor's challenge, but definitely like there are some that are unique.
Yeah. Nice one you said about your phone. How can we be practicing? I'm reading that John Mark Comer book at the minute. It's unbelievable, loving it. Like, but how can, say, students practice the way of the Sabbath? Like, how important is Sabbath for students?
Sabbath is massive, right? Sabbath is a bit of a pet subject.
Could be another podcast.
So yeah, I mean, Sabbath is a really interesting thing. If you want to look at the Bible, there are kind of 2 specific messages in the Old Testament that are foundational, like people of God, foundational messages about Sabbath. One is that we Sabbath because God Sabbath. So on the 7th day he rested. You rest as God rested. So that is about an imitation. We do what God did. We do what God tells us to do, like that. So it's important because when we rest, we're doing something that God designed into the rhythm of life. The other one is post Exodus, and it says that it's to remember that you were once slaves and now you're free. In other words, there is a resistance element to it. So Sabbath is actually about saying no to the kind of very strong cultural forces that are in the world. So it's not just about stopping, actually it's about pushing back as well. And for me, the phone is the big one, but it's not the only one. I think the first thing that's really important is making a conscious choice. Like, actually, I'm going to choose to do something about Sabbath. So whether it's your phone, or it's you're going to make a decision that you're never going to work on a Sunday, or you're going to make a decision that you are going to do some things like on that day that are specific, set apart. I mean, the Jewish culture has a whole bunch of ritualistic stuff, candles you light, prayers you say, things that happen through that day, and it is wonderful in how different it is. Abraham Heschel has a book simply called The Sabbath. If you get a chance to read it, you should. Walter Brueggemann has a book called Sabbath is Resistance. There's obviously a number of books. John Mark Comer's written a couple. Marva Dawn has a book called Practicing the Sabbath Holy. Those are great things if you want to dip into actually meaningfully start to do it. But for me, it's about a conscious act of saying, I am going to set apart this time. This time is for rest for my body, for my soul, for my head. It's time to meet Jesus. People meet Jesus in lots of different ways, opening his word, prayer, worship, in the community of believers, and walking in nature, running, whatever it is you do that helps you find Jesus. Sabbath is for that. So it's for rest, it's for glorifying God, it's for pushing back against the other 6 days in your week, which we all know very often take more than they give. So Sabbath is about doing all of those things. And I think personally, it is a massively important thing, especially in this culture. Interestingly, the only people in the world who don't take time off are slaves. So if you don't take time off, what are you?
Well,
and what are you a slave to?
Yeah.
Other people's expectations, your phone, your workload, your mortgage, your whatever, do you become a slave to those things because you're unable to switch those things off for the day? And if you find, or you're answering that question right now, I find it really hard to switch off this, then I think that's exactly the thing you should be working towards switching off. So yeah, phone is a big one, but there's lots of other things.
That's brilliant. Nice one. Right, couple more and then we'll wrap up. But so you kind of spoke on it there now, and you've kind of been saying it through the whole podcast, but we got this one. How can you explain what it means to be an apprentice of Jesus, and how does that look today in Belfast?
Yeah, apprenticeship is the best term. So if you're thinking about, we tend to think about discipleship as things we do, reading your Bible, praying, like stuff like that. But actually, apprenticeship is the better word because that's how they learnt in that culture. And so apprenticeship really means kind of 3 movements, and I'm going to talk about these tomorrow night, so I'm ruining the talk, but it's fine. It generally means being with Jesus. So the first stop is you have to deal with learning to be with Jesus. You cannot run from it. The primary way in which an apprentice learned from their rabbi in like New Testament times was just being with them. They went everywhere with them, walked with them. They were there when they spoke. They were there when they ate. They slept probably in the same rooms. They just were with them all the time. They learned how to be like them by being with them. And so I think the first thing you got to do in your apprenticeship to Jesus, and by the way, that is what the Bible talks about way more than anything else, talks about being an apprentice, being a disciple. When you listen to what Jesus said all of the time, that's what he's talking about. So you have to be with him, then you become like him. You find that in your being, much like you find like in your being with anyone. You start a new relationship with a girl or boy, and all of a sudden you find yourself picking up phrases they use or eating habits they have, things like that, all of that. So you become like them, and then only when those 2 things begin to line up do you realistically begin to be able to do what Jesus did. Really make a discernible impact in the world in which we live. And that tends to be the flow. What does that look like in Jesus or in Belfast? Sorry. For me, it looks like I just think Belfast is not going to be won by a million more initiatives. Belfast is going to be won by, thousands of apprentices, people who are going about their everyday life, making an impact in workplaces, changing strategy for companies, doing the things that Jesus would do and would be. So I think we incarnate it in Belfast, and I think that is the only way that we will see the city transformed, is by people walking this out, really walking this out. I'm not shouting down, schemes and initiatives and programs and courses. No, they're amazing and we should do them. But to be honest, it's in incarnating this in Belfast. That's how we will make a genuine difference in Belfast. So, be with him, become like him, do what he did. And the best place for that to happen is in a community. If you're not part of a church community, you are seriously limiting, I think you're seriously limiting your apprenticeship to Jesus. And so if you're not in one, get involved with one. If you haven't seriously started to belong to one, as in plug in to its rhythms, then go and do it right now. If you are hemming and hawing about, you go to one church but you actually belong to another, just sort that out.
Yeah.
Just put roots down somewhere. Belong somewhere. The only way you're ever going to grow in your faith is when you're around other Christians and how they speak into your life and all of that stuff. So
cool.
I would say that's a massive factor.
Yeah, and we at Home Fellowship, we totally see that as a win. If someone comes to us and says, hey, I would love to come to Home Fellowship, but we've life group at our church that night, that's a win for us, because we believe Home Fellowship is amazing, but we believe it's the local church. We really believe that, and we really push that as well. One final question, Dave. Thanks for your time today, mate. How would you approach a conversation about Jesus with someone who is unwilling to listen and maybe has like strong counter arguments?
One, I probably wouldn't.
Okay.
I feel from my own personal experience and from just being around other people that I think the most profoundly important thing you can be is somebody who is a consistent follower of Jesus in your life. And so I think you have to ask yourself a lot of the time, would it really help if you did? I don't think anyone's ever been argued into the kingdom of God.
Yeah,
so for me personally, I think there is a point where argument or just having right answers becomes unhelpful. So number one, I would love this person. I would actually make a proactive effort to develop a relationship with them, get to know them properly, share life alongside them, and live your life consistently. Don't water down who you are, what you believe, Jesus has done in your life when you're around them. Be the same you that is you in church or around Home Fellowship or around your Christian friends. Be that around them also. But live consistently alongside them over time. And I have found that consistency, that integrity, that thing that Jesus has done in your life, which will absolutely stand out. It will make you distinct from other people in their lives. That will foster questions. And sure, for me, I think people are a little, what is it? Is it, it's Donkey in Shrek says that they call Shrek Onion Boy because he's got layers, right? and I find people are exactly like that. Yeah. You get the big, like, existential, lofty questions, if God's so good, what about all this sort of stuff? Oh, he hates this. And you get all that stuff. People throw that out there. But that's at a shallow level of their lives. Eventually, the longer you're with them, and as you are kind of with them consistently over time, you begin to get actually the real questions and the real stuff that's really going on inside. And as you begin to get to those points, that's when I find you have a genuine opportunity to begin to speak gospel truth, meaning hope, mercy, grace, love into people's lives. And so for me, it's more a question about how are you going to live, not what are you going to say. And I think that if you're serious about it, what's the greatest commandment? Love the God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. For me, that is what we should be taking seriously, how we live before what we say. Big questions are hard to answer. I think one of the most important things you can do is go, that's a really hard question, and be really honest about that. But equally, if they've asked the question or they've made a comment and they genuinely want to know, go away and do the work. Like, go and read a chapter in a book, go and listen to a podcast, get yourself equipped, and then come back and say, hey, you asked me about this last week. I've been thinking about it. Here you go. And that's an opportunity to talk rather than a confrontational thing, probably in a outside a uni class or in a pub some Friday night, right? You change the context. Class. But take seriously the question. But for me, the way you live is going to speak volumes into their lives.
Class. Dave, your church, sorry, when do you guys meet on a Sunday, just to finish? When do you
Yeah,
guys...
Central gathers here in my street. We're here every Sunday at 11, coffee from 10:30. There's kids ministry happens downstairs, and there's a number of communities meet around the city. One of them has a whole bunch of students in it too, and so if people are looking for church, or they're not yet part of a church in Belfast, they would be really, really welcome here.
Nice one. Well, Dave, thanks very much for your time today, mate. Tomorrow night, Dave's coming to share at 8:30 right here in Central, so you'll not want to miss that. But thanks for today, Dave. Cheers.
No problem. See you later.
Thanks again for listening today. And for more information, please check out our Facebook and Instagram. See you soon.